Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. Wall Street gives up gains after U.S. private sector hiring slows to a two-year low. President Trump ramps up the pressure on Fed Chair Powell to lower interest rates. U.S. President Donald Trump calls China's Xi Jinping very tough and extremely hard to make a deal with. This comes after trade talks between both nations have stalled. Both leaders are likely to speak this week. Royal Challengers Bengaluru's IPL victory celebrations take a tragic turn. 11 people feared dead and several injured in a stampede outside Chinnaswamy Stadium. Facing flack over crowd management, the state government apologizes. Zeroda CEO Nitin Kamath expects SEBI's new margin trading facility rules to cushion some of the losses due to stricter F&O rules. Forecasts a 10 to 20% drop in its broking business. Says overall business should be all right this year. Also sticks to their no IPO stance. That's an exclusive. Block deal frenzy on Dalal Street. Large deals worth 3,000 crore rupees in Aditya Birla fashion. Alchem Labs, Tata Tech and Indegene. This after shares worth 5,500 crore rupees changed hands yesterday in 5 companies, including Ola Electric, Yes Bank and Vodafone Idea. Just days after exiting the White House, Elon Musk calls Trump's big beautiful tax bill a disgusting abomination. The bill is estimated to add nearly $4 trillion to the US deficit. After Bajaj and TVS, Tata Motors flags concerns over China restricting the exports of rare earth magnets critical for electric vehicle production. Siam President and Tata Motors executive Shailesh Chandra says the industry is closely interacting with the government. The government announces dates for the census. The exercise will start in October of 2026 in Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. The count for the rest of India will begin from March of 2025. The last census was conducted in 2011. A summer washout for cooling appliances. Sales of air conditioners declined 30% compared to last year. Refrigerator sales see flat growth as unseasonal rains and early onset of monsoons play spoil sport. Let's start with the action on Wall Street. Weak jobs data is worrying investors. Private payrolls increased by 37,000 in the month of May. This is significantly below the forecast of more than 110,000 jobs and just over half of the 60,000 payroll additions in April. This was the lowest monthly job total in more than 2 years' time. Soon after the data was released, US President Donald Trump ramped up pressure on Federal Reserve Chairperson Jerome Powell. Trump said, and I quote, "Too late. Powell must now lower the rate. He's unbelievable. Europe has lowered 9 times." End of quote. Well, meanwhile, oil prices softened today owing to concerns of oversupply after OPEC Plus increased output. Lingering concerns over the global economic outlook due to the tariff tensions also weighed on the prices. Meanwhile, gold prices rose, driven by rising safe haven demand triggered by uncertainty over US-China trade relations and global economic concerns. A weaker dollar also provided additional support. And the United States is set to double import tariff on aluminum and steel products to 50% with effect from today. This after US President Donald Trump signed the executive order increasing duties on imports of the two metals from 25% to 50% to protect the US steel industry. However, the United Kingdom has been granted a temporary reprieve from the new tariff rates till the contours of the recently signed trade deal are worked out. Canada and Mexico are expected to be the worst hit by this levy. And US President Donald Trump says that it is extremely hard to make a deal with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The statement comes after trade talks between both nations came to a halt. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump said, and I quote, "I like President Xi of China, always have and always will, but he's very tough and extremely hard to make a deal with." End of quote. Remember, both United States and China had agreed to a 90-day tariff pause in the month of May as they discussed a new trade deal. But over the last few weeks, both nations have accused each other of reneging on their commitments. And speaking of China, Beijing is considering placing an order for hundreds of Airbus aircraft. A Bloomberg report has said that this move could materialize as soon as the next month. Deliberations for the potential size of the order are currently underway. The deal could range between 200 to 500 aircraft and may include both narrow-body and wide-body models. Well, now on to action from the Lal Street back home. Markets closed higher after a range-bound session, with Nifty ending above 24,600 mark. Broader markets continued to outperform the benchmark indices. The mid-caps outperformance kept the market breadth in favor of advances. So, my colleague Surabhi Upadhyay is now joining us with more details. Surabhi, take us through the day's trading action.
Well, a good day for the market, middle of the week, and positive consolidation continued. The Nifty, as well as, of course, the broader market, continued to trend higher. The bias was decidedly up. The Nifty, by the end of it, managed a gain of about 0.3%, and the mid-cap index once again outperformed with a gain of almost 0.7% thereabouts. Global markets overall are in a mood to shrug off a lot of these tariff worries, even as those 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum kicked in today. While we were trading, European markets were up. US futures had started pointing higher. So it seems that right now, that's no longer on the front burner. It's on the back burner for the time being. Let's talk about what worked in the market and what the pockets of action were. Defense, railway, auto stocks, all of them leading the buying action. Financials and banking relatively subdued, and I'll talk about that when we discuss stocks. So let's talk about the gainers. Geofinance, by the way, was an exception. Like I said, otherwise financials were slightly weak today. Aside of that, Bharti Airtel had a good day. Reliance chipped in quite nicely. Tech Mahindra from the IT pack. And autos, like I said, Tata Motors, Maruti, some decent gains. And even metal names, Hindalco and Tata Steel, as globally markets were in a bit of a risk-on mood. The losers now, Bajaj Finserv, Shriram Finance, ICICI Bank, Axis Bank, financials, not a very hot spot ahead of the RBI policy. TCS and Trent from the Tata stable also had a down day today. Quick commerce plays were really worthy of taking note of today. Both Eternal and Swiggy had a fantastic session. Swiggy, in fact, was up almost 7-8%. A lot of focus is now on Zepto and what is the pace of its next round of fundraising and its eventual IPO. Mid-cap movers, what a flurry of action here in defense and railways. Both of them really stood out. Within railways, Aircon, RVNL, RITES, RailTel, these stocks gained anywhere between 5% to as much as 13-14% in some cases. And some of the private sector names like Texmaco Rail also tripped in. So good railway party today. Other mid-cap and small-cap movers included PB Fintech, Garden Reach Shipbuilders, All Cargo Logistics, and the recent listing, Bellrise Industries. A good day for the broader market. The Nifty's been consolidating in roughly a 500 and 550 point band. And every time we approach the downside of this range, which is roughly 24,500, we're seeing buying come in. The next important triggers, there is, of course, the ECB meet tomorrow, the RBI meet, so lots of central bank action over the next 48 hours. And then, of course, we have the jobs report on Friday, so plenty to keep the market occupied, but the bias seems to be on the way up.
Well, valuations in India are cheap and inexpensive. That's the word coming in from Rhythm Desai, Managing Director at Morgan Stanley India. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, Desai said that the US company's decision to set up manufacturing facilities in India has very little to do with tariffs. He added that India is not going to become the next China.
In my humble opinion, and it's not even humble, I think stocks are cheap. Okay. Stocks are inexpensive in India. I wrote that day before yesterday. My title of my report is Equities are Inexpensive. Bond yield in India, 10-year bond yield is 6.2%. The equity yield is 5%. India is a growth market. The gap is -1%. This is cheap. Yeah. Look at Nifty in gold ounces. Either gold prices fall or Nifty goes up. It's cheap.
Now, Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has called for a stronger dispute resolution mechanism at the World Trade Organization to curb non-tariff barriers. Addressing a gathering of WTO trade ministers in Paris, Goyal called to strengthen a consensus-based mechanism. He also conveyed India's ask for special treatment of least developed and developing countries. And China, refusing to ease its stranglehold over its supply of rare earth magnets, has not just become a cause for concern for the global EV ecosystem, but is rankling Indian EV makers as well. Leading electric vehicle companies, including the likes of Bajaj Auto, TVS Motor and Tata Motors, have told us that the situation is concerning and has the capacity to bring production to a grinding halt. China accounts for 90% of the world's rare earth magnet supply and is a critical component for manufacturing electric vehicles.
The whole supply chain of the world resides in China. So if this is true, we are still trying to come to terms with the facts, all the facts. But if this is true, it would mean that, and if it doesn't change, then in a matter of weeks, the entire Indian EV industry will grind to a halt.
I would be wrong in saying that we don't have dependence on this. There is dependence. As SIAM president, SIAM as well as ACMA both are very closely interacting with the government. Government has been very supportive on this issue, in terms of reaching out to the Chinese government also, the relevant ministries there. And we hope that the issue might be, taken care of.
This EV supply chain disruption is certainly going to pose a short to medium term challenge. And I think as India plans its EV strategy and EV plan, the adoption will have to be phased in or phased up, along with developing an Atmanirbhar supply chain in India, where India, as the world's leading two-wheeler market, which has produced 3 of the top 5 companies by volume globally, has its own supply chain, its own R&D, its own capability, and EV is really built on that basis.
Well, just days after exiting the White House, Elon Musk has called President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill a disgusting abomination. In a post on X, Musk accused Congress of bankrupting America as the bill burdens citizens with unsustainable levels of debt. The Tesla CEO also hit out at the US House of Representatives for voting for the bill. Dia Epen is here with more details. Dia, tell us more about these Musk comments.
A high-stakes tax and spending bill hailed by US President Trump as a big, beautiful bill is now being called a disgusting abomination by none other than Elon Musk. Just days after exiting his role as the cost-cutting czar in the Trump administration, the tech billionaire is publicly denouncing the legislation. His comments have sparked a wave of political backlash and exposed growing divisions within the Republican Party itself. The bill in question, which cleared the House in May, includes multi-trillion-dollar tax breaks, a sharp increase in defense spending, and raises the federal government's borrowing limit by up to $4 trillion. Just last week, Musk walked out of the Trump administration after 129 days working with his team Doge to slash spending. His departure was quickly followed by a flurry of posts on X, where he called the bill outrageous, pork-filled, and warned it would push the national deficit to a staggering $2.5 trillion. In a direct rebuke to lawmakers, Musk wrote, "Shame on those who voted for it." Despite having reportedly donated over $250 million to support Trump's re-election efforts, Musk is now vying to fund campaigns aimed at removing any politician who, in his words, has betrayed the American people. Musk says that same group could face political consequences, especially if they vote to advance the bill. The Trump administration wasted no time to hit back. White House Press Secretary Karen Leavitt said this when asked about Trump's remarks.
How mad do you think President Trump is going to be when he finds out that Elon Musk said, "I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it."
Look, the president already knows where Elon Musk stood on this bill. It doesn't change the president's opinion. This is one big, beautiful bill, and he's sticking to it.
Well, on to a CNBC TV 18 exclusive. Zeroda CEO Nitin Kamath expects SEBI's new margin trading facility rules to cushion some of the losses due to stricter F&O rules. Despite this, he's still forecasting a 10 to 20% drop in Zeroda's broking business. Kamath says that the overall business will be all right this year and continues to maintain no IPO stance. Kamath spoke to CNBC TV 18's managing editor Shireen Bhan from the sidelines of the EY World Entrepreneur Awards in Monte Carlo, where he's one of the 43 finalists vying for the top prize.
In terms of, we started our MTF business last December, which has grown significantly, which is around 3,000 crores of book size. So it kind of cushions some of these, some of the losses from the options trading business. But that said, the hit is still there, so I guess we would be we would have done all right if we did a flat year this year, and from the operations of broking, as in the overall business, should be still all right because we do some treasury operations and also, and it's until last October, until December is like not bad at all. So overall business should be all right, but broking business as such, I think, will still be down like 10-20%. It takes a while to build trust and credibility as such, and so in 10 years from now, we would want to be a full-fledged financial conglomerate as such, so and hopefully banking will happen somewhere along the way. We have enough cash to do whatever we wish to do, and I feel that being listed on the exchanges is kind of tough to, for a company like ours, it's kind of tough, because a lot of times what is right for the investor isn't really what is right for the customer.
Well, you can catch that full conversation with Nitin Kamath at 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC TV 18. Well, it's a block deal frenzy on the Lal Street with large deals worth 3,000 crore rupees in Aditya Birla Fashion, Alchem Labs, Tata Tech, as well as Indegene. This after shares worth 5,500 crore rupees changed hands yesterday in 5 companies, including Ola Electric, Yes Bank, and Vodafone Idea. Vivek Iyer is here with more details on today's big deals.
Well, that's right. So the block deals, immediately post the earnings season, quite a lot of supply coming in as far as the secondary market was concerned. First on the list was Aditya Birla Fashion. Remember, Flipkart held a little over 6% stake in the company. Aditya Birla Fashion is the demerged entity, so one entity is still yet to list. What actually transpired was that over 6% equity traded hands and over 600 crore was the value of the block deal. The other stock on focus was Indegene. Almost 1/10 of the company exchanged hands today. One of the pre-IPO private equity investors, Carlyle, which held stake under CA Dawn, that particular entity sold over 10.2% stake, and they managed to garner a little over 1,500 crore rupees via this particular block deal. Tata Technologies, another one, very interesting given the fact that TPG Rise, held over 6% of the equity at the end of the March quarter. They trimmed almost 5%, 4.9% to be precise, in April, and after that today they've gone ahead and sold a further 2.1% equity. Thereby, now post today's block deal, TPG Rise won't have any stake left as far as Tata Technologies was concerned. And lastly, Alchem Labs, interestingly again, the promoter here trimming the stake, a promoter by the name of Jayanti Sinha, offloaded almost 1.4% equity stake in Alchem Labs today. Most of the stocks that you're discussing ended the session lower after the block deals took place.
Now, Royal Challengers Bengaluru's IPL victory celebrations took a tragic turn. 11 people feared dead and several others injured in a stampede outside Chinnaswamy Stadium after RCB fans gathered there to celebrate the franchise's first ever IPL championship. The injured have been admitted to nearby hospitals. It was a sea of red outside the Karnataka State Assembly, where the government felicitated the team players. Were also felicitated at the Chinnaswamy Stadium. Karnataka Deputy Chief Minister D.K. Shivkumar said that the crowd was uncontrollable and apologized for the overcrowding.
Now, a lot of trouble is there. I don't want to disturb the doctors who are trying to take care of the patients. And only the exact number has not been still this one. So we are at it. We appeal to all of them to still to be calm.
How many people died?
That is why we cut off. A lot of programs were there. We didn't want to continue with the program. Only within 10 minutes with one round we just closed it. And we appeal even in the metros, whatever the metros has been jammed. We are not able to start. We are taking a little bit time to see that everything comes to the normal position.
And coming up on India Business Hour, a summer washout for cooling appliances. Sales of air conditioners declined by 30% compared to last year. More details in just a bit. And you can also catch all CNBC's TV18's news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, and Jio Hotstar. The Indian Army has rescued 30 people stranded after landslides in North Sikkim. The Army has established foot connectivity to the village and reached out to 113 stranded tourists who will be evacuated soon. Search operations are still underway to locate the 6 individuals missing after the landslide struck a military camp at Chaten. The government has said that the next census with enumeration of castes will begin from October of 2026 and will be conducted first in Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand and Ladakh. The exercise for the rest of India will begin from March of 2027. The last census was conducted back in 2011. The monsoon session of Parliament will be held from 21st of July to the 12th of August. Both houses of the Parliament are scheduled to convene after a break of over 3.5 months. This will also be the first session of Parliament after Operation Sindoor. Now, sales of cooling appliances dropped by 20% this summer, largely led by unseasonal rains and an early monsoon. AC sales, in fact, are down by as much as 30% compared to last year, while cooler sales have plunged nearly 45%. Shilpa Ranipeta, my colleague, joins us now with more details. Shilpa, tell us, how has the industry reacted to this dip, this big dip, 30% for ACs this year?
Well, the summer was clearly not a hot season for consumer durable makers when it comes to cooling appliances. Now, in the period of March to May, which is usually the peak season for cooling appliances, sales in the industry were down by about 20% over last year. Now, remember, March to May is the peak season and a bulk of sales for consumer durable makers come from this period, especially for segments like ACs, refrigerators, fans and coolers. However, this year, because of unseasonal rains and because the summer was clearly not hot enough in the southern states especially, the sales have been poor. Now, if you look at AC, for instance, sales declined there by about 30% over last year. Coolers did even worse. They were down by about 40 to 45% over last year. Refrigerators, not major decline, but no growth either. It says, the industry says there was rather flat when it comes to refrigerators. Now, Blue Star has said that AC sales grew by only 5% in April, whereas for the entire season, they were expecting anywhere about 30% growth. And May after that, because of the rains, was even worse. Now, Vijay Sales also says that this was a very unexpectedly poor summer for them. AC sales for them were down about 35% and cooler sales by down about 45%. And they say that this season has been as poor as 2023, which was also a very bad season where sales had been down anywhere between 25 to 30% due to weak demand. And this is, an outlier as compared to last year. Last year, actually, after several seasons of declining in sales, they had actually seen a very good season where in 2024, cooling appliances actually grew by around 25% industry-wide, and ACs had grown anywhere by up to 70% in certain markets. So certainly this summer season is a complete washout, especially when it comes to the AC segment. But the industry is hopeful that for the overall consumer durable industry, the festive season may bring some green shoots and they may see an increased demand to make up for the low sales in the March to May segment.
First, the room air conditioner business. Summer season should have been 25 to 30% growth. It has not happened. But whenever summer season fails, it will be made up in the rest of the period. And I think 10 to 15% growth is possible. That is the anticipation. We will work towards that.
International news: Israeli forces continue to bombard Gaza, killing at least 26 Palestinians after intense overnight air attacks across Gaza. A majority of the killings were reported in Khan Yunis and Jabalia. Israeli military has also warned starving Palestinians in Gaza against approaching roads to the US-backed aid distribution sites. The sites will be closed for a whole day for renovation and reorganization work. This comes after 27 Palestinians were shot and killed due to chaos at food distribution points. Russian forces have intensified their attacks in Ukraine's Sumy region. Moscow has said that it captured another village, bringing the region's capital closer to the range of frontline drones. This comes as Kyiv displayed its ability to conduct a series of strikes, hitting Russian strategic bombers and the Crimean Bridge. Ukraine claims to have destroyed at least 12 Russian fighter jets. The Indian embassy in Tehran has confirmed that 3 Indian men who went missing in Iran have been rescued by the local police. All 3 men were from Punjab, who were supposed to have travelled to Australia from Iran in search of jobs. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Before we go, CNBC TV 18 Access is now live. Access is a premium membership-based service available on cnbctv18.com and the CNBC TV 18 mobile application. Members get exclusive content, access to our flagship events, interactions with our journalists, along with curated studio tours and e-learning sessions. Thanks so much for watching India Business Hour. For more news and updates, stay tuned to CNBC TV 18.
Most corporations, Shireen, and you know it better than I do because you see many more people, they seldom fail because of lousy strategies. They fail because of lousy leadership.
What is your leadership language?
Maybe this sounds controversial, but the classic hierarchical organization is no longer going to be relevant.
In the Infosys journey, Mr. Murthy was a mother attitude, and then later on he became a captain.
Alternate between being a mother and a captain. What do you believe is the relevant organizational structure?
Natural tendency always is add more. The wider the portfolio I have, the bigger the leader I am. It's about focusing on value creation and not worrying about how big my empire is.
Who created the constraints? Look what kind of people are coming out in IPL, because there is no constraint.
Let's talk cricket. A captain's innings that you would like to emulate?
I have a lot of regard for Dhoni as a captain, for how he brought the team together.
Some of the most underrated management principles.
Values is a tool of punishment, highly underrated.
I think the word happy has vanished from our dictionary.
We just don't learn that how capable our people are.
We actually put 20% of our KRAs for everyone as helping others.
We think our people are illiterate, कि चिमन भाई को क्या आएगा, सुब्रमण्यम को क्या आएगा, what nonsense.
What is it that you would like to see you change about your own leadership style?